Anyway, let's get going. So thank you everyone who is here watching and everyone who is here participating. I'm Pamela Bush, the founder of Wine Fair and the Vanguard, and this is day 3 of Wine Fair, and it's all gone by so quickly that I can't believe we're sort of at the last day. But we have a really wonderful day ahead of us. Starting off with this panel on Qvevri, the women taking over Georgia's natural wine movement. And some of you might have heard, I was saying a few minutes ago, I've been buying Georgian wine both professionally and personally for myself for 15 years. And in the early days, there weren't as many producers brought into the United States. And it just seemed like, it was all men that were doing it. That's not to say that was the case. That's just how it seemed. And it's kind of amazing to see how many women are now not just making wine, but are really part of what's going on in Georgia. Some of who will be joining us in this conversation today. So the moderator is Roni Ginach, who is a wine importer. She doesn't only import Georgian wines, but she does import a lot of Georgian wine and is very dedicated to it. She's worked in the industry for a number of years as a sommelier, and a couple of years ago formed her own import company based in Los Angeles, Roni Selects. So Roni, I'm gonna let you take it away. Again, thank you everybody, and have a good time. I'll be watching from the sidelines.
Thanks, Pamela. I am, as Pamela said, my name is Roni, and I have the great privilege of working with some of the producers that are here. Oh, we're also working for Taso. I knew we were missing more people. So hopefully we'll have some luck and people will pop in. But anyway, before we get started, I wanted to take a second to thank our sponsor, Julie Peterson, the managing partner of the Mark Wine Group on behalf of Wines of Georgia. Without Julie, I don't know where we'd be in terms of representation in America. The reason I for the first time was because of the work she's doing. So I just want to give her credit and thank her. So I wanted to start this by reading a little bit of a piece from Keto, from the introduction to your book that you just sent me, Keto Ninidze, and also introducing everybody, first of all, but we're only half here, so we'll start with the people who are here. So first of all, Keto Ninidze from Tamuna Bidzinashvili from Kortavebis, Marani, and Tamuna's wine, which we'll talk about the distinction between later, hopefully. And Keto Berishvili from GOGO, whose microphone one day will turn on, I hope. And Natia, who's here, is also one of the people to whom we are greatly indebted for everything to do with Georgian wine. And so she's here to translate and support, just make us all feel better, because her presence is a huge comfort. By reading this little piece, which is, Keto, I'd love to read the entire book one day. But for now, we'll start with this little section. Did we get another person? No, everybody's just moving around. Okay, put my little reading glasses on. So a process of formation of a woman's language in viticulture and viniculture is underway. Reflecting value structure new traditions build paths of specific vocabulary and phraseology, along with metaphors signifying the vineyard and wine in their minds. For example, while men perceive the vineyard as a virgin with woven braids, Berishvili's poem, and our patriarchal experience has preserved the tradition of deflowering the wine press, women usually associate it with a son or an elderly father. In other words, what matters in the first case is the erotic character and fertility of the vineyard, while in the second case, it is empathy and care. The female perspective on the winemaking experience is terra incognita, an untapped spring for reimagining the craft. The freshly budding, vulnerable stems that require treatment and care are analogous to an infant in need of motherly love. Women feel the same emotions during fermentation when they treat the sweet juice like an ailing child, keeping vigil, checking temperature, and breaking a fever. I wanted to read this because I've been thinking a lot about, Georgian wine. How is Georgian wine different from every other tradition of winemaking in the entire world? And the thing that is specific to it is this grand symbolic life that it has, the history, the mythology. It's such an important part of Georgian culture in a way that is not even in France. Obviously, it's hugely integrated. In Italy, it's hugely integrated into culture. Not the same in Georgia. It's a spiritual connection with wine that is this like poetic myth, and it is gendered, and hi Keto. Can we hear you?
Keti, შენი ხარ გვესმის? კაი, არ გვესმის შენი ხმა.
Nope. Yes, no, I think you have to talk. We can see. No, okay, we'll see. Anyway, we'll work it out. So anyway, I just wanted to open it up for you all to talk a little bit about that sort of element of how the history, the mythology, the symbolic language around wine, how it is. I mean, just talk about it a little bit, and maybe Keto, you can start because this is your Ninidze. You can start us off because these are your words.
Okay. Thank you, Roni. Hello, good evening to everyone. It was very nice to join the event because I was also attending the previous ones, and it was really very impressive and interesting for me and helpful as well. I'm Keto Ninidze, founder of Oda Family Winery, and I'm also writing about wine. Now, and Roni was speaking about the book, which was published by GIZ, and I was the author of the book, and it was a kind of research I was providing among the female winemakers of Georgia, and it was really very interesting experience for me because it is really starting point how it turns to the winemaking turns to more feminine style, or how the feminine style of winemaking is forming in Georgia. These are really starting stages, and it was very interesting for me to research this general stresses, trends, and directions, or how the language was formed, how these female winemakers were speaking about their work, their job, and which were the challenges or problems or they faced, or what were the cliches linked with their jobs, or cultural cliches, because in Georgia there is one myth, which is I'm not sure it was really like this historically. Some Georgian men say that women were not even allowed to enter the winery. I don't know, because I have not read in the historic, the real, valid resources that it was like that. But this nowadays exists, and it was really interesting. It's for me in such a patriarchal country like in Georgia, how this female stuff was flourishing and forming. And as for the myths, mythology, and archetypes, of course, it was connected with the fertility, motherhood, which was very important, of course, always for the small countries like Georgia, and for the existence, for feeding, for everything like that. And also the symbolism, which were Roni referred, symbolism of Qvevri, like it's in Georgian perception, it's pregnant woman, and like a symbol of fertility, which is buried underground. It's like a symbol of death and birth and something like that, because Qvevri was also used as a graves, and it was like and like a soil, it was regarded as mother, where we come from and where we go after with us. So it's like that. Overall, it's complicated and big issue, of course. And briefly, it was like that.
Right, a lot of
Keti
technical
ismi
difficulties today.
სადაც კვირამე.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Keto. When if anyone isn't
Enek,
speaking, we can turn off mics for
არის.
feedback or sound from outside, but only if your microphone works with half of us. Hi, Taso.
მე Keto, შენ გესმის ამათი? მე არავის არ მესმის.
კი, მე მესმის.
არც რონისი, არც ნაციასი. არავის.
კომპიუტერი
გამორთული მქონდა და იმიტომ. ეხლა გესმით ჩემი?
ჩემი ისმის ხალხო.
ყველას მესმის.
ხო, ისმის.
ბაიასი ახლა გავიგე კი.
თამო გესმის ჩემი? თამუნა გესმის ჩემი? თამუნა
არ ესმის ეთყობა.
არ ესმის. და
რა ჭირს, რა უბედურება ჭირს.
თამუნა, ანუ მე დავტოვე ივენთი და შენ შეკიდე და მაგან უშველა.
Are we trying to fix Keto's microphone? What's happening?
To mine or Berishvili?
No, the other Keto. Okay, I'm just gonna
I
get us.
think she doesn't understand us.
Sorry.
I think she doesn't understand us.
You can't hear. Okay. Well, Taso, does your microphone work?
I can't hear Natia.
თამუნა. That's the problem.
What that everyone can't hear each other is the problem.
Unmute აქვს შუაში ქვემოთა პანელზე.
Nak, Keto?
Unmute, mute რო გამორთო რა, არის დაბლა რო ღილაკებია შუაში. მაგრამ შენ გამორთული ეს ტასოს ვეუბნები.
That's a good idea, Laura. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Keto, do you have some headphones, or Berishvili, do you have some headphones that you can try to use? Okay, and then we continue. Okay, so we have to keep going, and then
Tamuna cannot hear me, so that's the case. We gesmīs. So
Okay.
that's it. Okay.
Wonderful. To what we were talking about, I just want to do a little recap. Basically, what Keto Ninidze was just talking about was about the relevant symbolic and mythological in Georgian wine. And I just want to go backwards a little because you talked about a lot of things that are very complex, having to do with the Qvevri and having to do with the life, death, birth, buried in the ground, all of these gestures. So maybe we can there are a lot of people here who might not be super familiar with the process of traditional Georgian winemaking. So maybe we can do a little bit of a rundown of what a Qvevri is, sort of a short history and of the last 10 years, and sort of tell us who you all are and how you make wine. Let's just get started there so we can get oriented. So Tamuna, do you want to just tell us a little about yourself and your winemaking and your project before we get going, and then we'll just pass it along. Everybody will talk about them, introduce themselves.
შენ შესახებ მოგვიყევი და შენი მეღვინეობის შესახებ.
ჩემს შესახებ
ვინ ხარ, რა ხარ და ასე შემდეგ.
ჩემი შესახებ იმის თქვა შემიძლია რომ არ ვარ პროფესიონალი მიღიმე, არ მაქვს განათლება ამ დარგში მიღებული, საერთოდ სხვა პროფესია მაქვს ორი, ერთი არის სამგულენის სპეციალისტი და მეორე მარკეტინგის სპეციალისტი. გადათარგმნა და
პირველი რა იყო მარკეტინგი და
სამგულენა.
Okay. Okay, I'm Tamuna Bidzinashvili, and I'm not the professional winemaker. I never studied it. I have two other professions. I'm a specialist of French language and also the marketologist.
ჩემი ღვინოსთან შეხება პირველად მოხდა როცა ვიყავი 19 წლის და გავიარე მიკრობიოლოგიის და დეგუსტაციის სამთვიანი კურსი უკრაინაში სრულიად შემთხვევით, როგორც მოყვარული.
My first, let's say, connection or with the wine was when I was 19. I surprisingly got to learn microbiology and tastings in Ukraine during 3 months, and that was first meeting with the wine field.
და თავარი მიზეზი კიდე ამ ღვინოსთან ჩემი კავშირის იყო ჩემი ყოფილი მეუღლე, რომელიც იყო ჩემი მეგობარი და ერთად უძღვებით ჩვენს მარანს, რომელიც ატარებს ჩვენი შვილების სახე. კორტავების მარანი.
Also, my connection with wine is through my ex-husband, who is now my good friend, and we are making wine together. We are in this field together, and our winery is carrying the name after our children, Kortavebis Marani. It is after them.
2013 წელს კახაბერიშვილის ძალიან დიდი ზეგავლენის და სტაბილიზების ქვეშ მოვითხოვე რომ დაგვეწყო ჩვენი საკუთარი ღვინი, ოღონდ ნატურალური ღვინის კეთება.
In 2013, after the huge influence of Berishvili, the Keto's father, I started to make the wine, a natural wine. After that, yeah.
და ჩვენი ხელით გავაშენეთ 2 ჰექტარზე ენემური ჯიშები, ჩავყარეთ ქვევრები და დავიწყეთ ესე იგი ბიოლოგიურად სუფთა ყურძნის შესყიდვით პირველი წლები. და აგერ უკვე 4 წელია, 5 წელია წარმოგვეწია ჩვენი ყურძნის და სადღაც უკვე 60-70% ჩვენი ყურძნის მუშაობა. თუმცა ყავს მე ვენახები, რომლისგანაც ყოველ წელს ყიდულობთ სუფთა ყურძნს.
Okay, we bought 2 hectares of land and we planted the vineyard, and all the wines are indigenous Georgian varieties. But before they grow up, we were buying the biological, let's say, organic grapes, fruits from the other vineyards. But for last 4 or 5 years, we already have our own grapes, and 70% of the grapes we are using for our wines are from our own vineyards. And but we still continue to buy the organic grapes from other vineyards as well.
რაც შეეხება ორ სხვადასხვა ხაზს, კორტავების ღვინის ხაზს და თამუნას ხაზს, 2014-ში რაღაცნაირად მოვინდოდი რომ ეს პატარა ექსპერიმენტი ჩამეტარებინა, რომელიც კორტავების სახელს არ იქნებოდა კავშირში. იმიტომ რომ არ ვიცოდით საბოლოო ჯამში რა ეს ექსპერიმენტი რა შედეგს გამოიღებდა. და ამ წლიდან 2014-დან მომეწონა ჩემი ექსპერიმენტის შედეგი და დავიწყე თამუნას ხაზის ცალკე ექსპერიმენტალური მიქსების კეთება.
From 2014, I decided to have a little experiment. So I developed another line. First line was Kortavebis Marani, and second one was Tamuna's wine. And it was a small, tiny experiment, which I liked. And I continued after that to make experiments with the blendings and mixing different varieties.
არის ესეთი მიქსები, მაგალითად ორი წელი ავაკეთებ ქართლის და კახეთის ყურძნების მიქსს. ვაკეთებ რამდენიმე თეთრი ჯიშის მიქსს. აი ხა წელს გავაკეთებ პირველად სრულიად უჭაჭო მინო დავაყენე ორი სახეობის ქვევში. აი მარტო წვენი, რამაც ნორმალური შედეგი მოგვცა. ვცდილობ რომ ამ თამუნას ხაზით, რაც მე მაინტერესებს, დავიკმაყოფილო ჩემი ჭია და რაღაცები ვაკეთო, რაც თქმა უნდა, ყოველგვარი დიდი ცოდნის გარეშე რაღაცნაირად მოდის. გამოცდილება.
I started to blend two varieties, but not only two varieties from one region, also varieties from different regions. For example, from Kakheti and Kartli, those are two central-east parts of Georgia. And plus, for example, this year I made an experiment. I blended grapes and also without the skins. I fermented them into the Qvevri. So I try to continue this, let's say, philosophy with mixings and blendings because just like I like it, and without any learning or the education, I want just to make more experiments and found my new tastes, let's say.
Thank you, Tamuna.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I have many questions for you about a lot of that, about the blessing and everything, and a lot of decisions, but we come back to it. So maybe, Baia, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into wine? I know your family has traditionally made wine also, so maybe you tell us a little bit about yourself now.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you for making such a great event, and include us as well from our little wineries from Georgia. I'm Baia Abuladze, and I'm the member of my family who were always growing grapes and making wine out of it. But my ancestors and my parents even did not even think about bottling wine and then selling them, and then trying diversities of the also varieties we have in Emeriti, because all the wines they were making was useful, and we love drinking wine by ourselves, and yeah, it was for family consumption itself. But during the whole childhood, me, my sister Gvantsa, and my brother Georgi, we were always enjoying working with parents. It was really beautiful memories we had connected to the vineyards, which is perfect place as for playing, as for helping them in the harvest time. And at the same time, we were having a lot of pictures in front of us came from winery itself. But as soon as we were thinking that we are really small producers and our wine is really good, but we will host every people who are coming in our house, and we will have our wines for forever. But then when I finished my school and went to the university in the capital city, I recognized that there was a lot of great winemakers size like us. For example, we met almost all the beautiful winemakers like Keto, Tamuna, and everyone. We are here in the wine festivals in Tbilisi, and it was a great shock for me personally to see them on the in the front, and to see them also in a great position as the small farmers, because then you can feel that you can do your best even in the small areas. So that's how we started, and then in 2015 we bottled our first wines, and of course it was not really easy to see from this perspective, because there was we had almost no connection, and we had almost no let's say market for our wines. But what we recognized was that our region is not really well shown in even in Georgia as a winemaker's place because because of the small production, and there was a huge gap of Emiratian wines and wines we are producing in the restaurant menu, and then we get really nice step-by-step orders, and the people really love that wine came from Emirati, which has this fine acidity and perfect combination of flowers itself. And then my sister Gvantsa studied master of agronomy because we really wanted to have this whole crew of full of knowledge about the wines and grapes itself. And then my brother started studying on the viticulture and winemaking in the university, in the same university as my grandpa finished. And also, I'm also WSU courses #1 level student, and we get almost all the great chances to practice and to study a lot. But the best practice area for three of us and for our crew is our wine cellar itself, and we are free to make any decisions we want and experiment any like products like pet nut was 3 years ago, and nobody is telling us that we cannot do that. And today we are here, and I'm so happy that I can share my small experience to other amazing women and winemakers from around the world. So thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Baia. And your sister was also meant to be here, and I think a technical glitch, but we're very happy to have you here, so thank you so much. Keto Berishvili is going to try to tell us a little bit about, but we're maybe trying to find some creative solutions. I think we have to try the method. Maybe you'll go next. Okay, Enek. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Keti არ გვეშვის.
Great. We'll try Keti and Tamuna. We'll try your method afterwards, and then Enek, maybe we'll talk a little bit first.
Yes, 1 minute, please. I will call it.
Are you frozen?
Keti, აიღე telephone.
Oh, okay. Hold on. We're gonna try this method where Keti's talking to Tamuna, and we can have that. But we'll see if it works, and if it doesn't work.
Can you hear Keti?
Hi.
Oh yes.
Sorry, the fault of my computer and my phone and my headphone.
Oh my God, it's a miracle.
But I'm very clever, you see.
Yeah, that's true. That's not a miracle. It's just brilliance. Okay, so now that we can hear your voice, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your winemaking, when you started, how you started.
Well, I started to drink the wine when I was very young. From childhood, I can say. But I started to help my father to make wine from 2015. But already after 2018, I can say that he's helping me to make the wine. I'm joking. So first vintage was 2015. And we are working with Carpathian vintages like Qvevri, little bit of Planen and Saferari. But last year, fortunately or unfortunately, we had a great opportunity to try the vinification with Solikawuri, Chinuri, because we had a hailstone and friends helped us with their grapes. So 2020 will be like a different vintages, not usual for
Wow.
us.
That's very, when I met you, you had one wine, Saperavi, and now you have so many different types of wine, which is wonderful.
Yes,
Big
sometimes
growth.
hailstone, it helps.
Yes, sometimes hailstones help. Wonderful. So Taso, you and Keto grew up, or your wineries are very close to one another in the same village, on the same.
Yes.
And you
No,
did you also grow up?
it's every single. Magari
Sorry?
უცნაური.
არ მის
მის ჩემი ხმა?
აი, ნაცვლად რაღაც მიგე.
რა? ის მის ახლა.
So Taso, will you tell us a little bit about Artana and your family history and how you got into making wine? And Natia maybe can help with translating.
Okay. მე ვარ Taso, გამარჯობა ყველას. ღვინის კეთება დავიწყე 2014-ში.
Taso არაფერი არის მის კარგად.
არის მე ხა?
ეხლა ისმის.
ჩვენი ღვინის კეთება დავიწყეთ 2015 წელს. მანამდე კახა ბერიშვილთან ერთად მამაჩემს ჰქონდა ნაყიდი ვენახები და ჩვენ ვენახებში კახა აკეთებდა ღვინოს. რაღაცა დროს როცა 1-2 ჩავედით და კახასთან ერთად გავაკეთეთ ღვინო, მერე უკვე გადავწყვიტეთ, რომ ჩვენ თვითონ დაგვეწყოს საქმე და სოლიკოცაიშვილის და კახას დახმარებით დავიწყეთ ჩვენი ღვინის კეთება. განათლება არ მქონია ამ კუთხით საერთოდ. და ნელ-ნელა რაღაცებს სწავლობთ და ჩვენს ესე თვითნასწავლი მეღვინევარ მეც, როგორც ჩემი ძმა.
Okay, hi, I'm Taso and winemaking Artana, winery Artana, correct? And we started make wine from 2015. Before that, Berishvili, we had vineyards, but our grapes were used by Kaha. He was making wine out of them. And at some point before, few times we were helping Kaha. And we decided to make our own wine. And with the help of Solikotsaishvili and Kaha Berishvili, we started making it. We don't have any education for winemaking or viticulture. And so we are studying every day and slowly to how to make wine. We like my brother. Yeah. Okay. Where is she?
She's in and out. So
Yep.
That's good. A good introduction. More questions.
Yeah.
I just want to say to everybody who's listening, we are at the end. So if you have any questions, put them in. There's a Q&A panel all the way to the right, where you see chat, polls, people. I'm sure everyone's used to this by now. We're on day 3, but yeah, throw all your questions in there, and we'll save some time at the end. Keto, Ninidze, we're jumping now. So maybe you can tell us a bit about your background and about the winery, about Oda. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll
take it away.
Oda is the brand name of my winery, and Oda means house, traditional house, where my winemaking starts from. I'm right now I'm living with my husband and my two daughters in the ancestral house, which was built in 1933. And in 2016, we moved here from Tbilisi to the countryside. So this house is in a very small town in Western Georgia, near Black Sea, not so far away from Black Sea. And the name of the town is Martvili, which is very well known with its national parks, canyons, waterfalls, caves, etc. So with its natural monuments overall. So the idea of coming here was like my husband was involved in the working at the national monuments and nature protection, natural protection, and we always wanted to live here, to leave Tbilisi, because Tbilisi is now so polluted and so traffic problems and so many problems like diseases, healthy food, air pollution, everything like that. And we wanted our kids to live in the countryside, and we both are from Western Georgia. So my husband is Megrelian from this region. So we came here. And before that, my husband had already started winemaking in 2012. And actually, Zaza, my husband, and who owns Martvelis Marani, he's with his partners, was one of the first who started to revive this viticulture and winemaking for a long sleep after Soviet time. Because here in this region, I will say a few words about the region as well, right? Mm-hmm. Because not many people know about the Megrelian experience of viticulture and winemaking. Because the people, when they are speaking Georgia's winemaking, mostly they are meaning like Kaheti or maybe Kartli as well. Like Baia also mentioned that Western Georgia, like Imereti, Anguri, and Megrelian wines are not so presented and represented in the. But now more and more people and professionals are trying, like you, Roni, and our friends, to present wines as well. Had a great experience of viticulture and winemaking, and wine was like there was not an experience until 1880 of the Spalier system, of the training system of Spalier. The wine, like mostly the variety Ojaleshi, was.
Ask you a question. I have a question. Just to clarify one question. In 1880, you're talking about the training system for the vines, or you're talking about education?
Yes, 1880, in the second half of 19th century, there was a French guy, he was actually the husband of the local princess, Salome Dadiani, and he learned to the local people how to prune on the lower training systems. And before that, everybody was growing on the trees, like Ojaleshi, the main variety here. Mm-hmm. So, because there was phylloxera, and phylloxera damaged so much the vineyards of Samegrelo, as everywhere in Georgia and in the world overall, that the people didn't know how to deal with phylloxera, not only phylloxera, but the fungal diseases as well, like downy mildew and powdery mildew and some other diseases. So, before that, like wine was growing wildly, like Georgian singing, like Georgian. Which is growing in a crazy way. But then, when the people didn't know how to deal with that fungal diseases problem or some other, and they even didn't know how to spray. In the 7th of the 19th century, people started spraying, and before that, they even didn't spray, right? And most of the vineyards were damaged from fungal diseases, phylloxera, and there were no wines in Samegrelo. And before that, it was 65 endemic local varieties here in this region. And then it was Soviet time, for 70 years in Georgia. And the state decided that we don't need any winemaking in Samegrelo. And they only had one vineyard, basic vineyard. And they were only producing bojaleshi and in a very bad style, like a semi-sweet or something really not appropriate for this variety, and selling them on the Russian market for a huge quantity and not, of course, not the quality. And that was like that. And this a great experience was like forgotten. And I linked with my husband and several small wine growers and winemakers. He was so inspired with that because his grandfather was a grower and knew how to grow wines and how to make rootstocks and so on, that he also wanted to revive this winemaking and wine growing of his grandfather. But you know, he despite he didn't have any like university education in winemaking like me, he had like this feeling of validation because he's a man and every man is making wines in Georgia, and it was okay for him because it's a family job, it's a hobby, it's everything. You know, it's a lifestyle in Georgia. Even in Tbilisi, the people are making wines in garages. I don't know if this experience exists somewhere, maybe also outside Tbilisi and Georgia, but yeah, we make wines everywhere. But I didn't have this sense of validation because I didn't have any formal education. I was woman, so I didn't have family working in the vineyard. So yeah, it needs much knowledge. This knowledge, many things, and to make some mistakes. It was a little bit painful. It was not, the easy job, but overall, I'm learning still. I'm working with the varieties which come from Western Georgia. These are mostly so except Solikori, these are rare Western Georgian varieties, like from this region, my region, Samegrelo, from Raja, and of course growing wines organically. I'm not certified, my winery is not certified, but because I have the partners, very small family-based vineyards in the different regions. And it's really hard to certify all the very, very small plots, like 0.2 hectare or something like that. And but we have contracts each year. We are buying from the same people, same families, and we are very like strictly inspecting how they are like using the sprays or not using the chemical fertilizers or something like that. And we have trust we have among each other. So and I have also a very small vineyard where I'm still learning how to grow the wine. And then I'm going to expand in the coming years for a little bit more.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enek, do you have sound? Or are we doing? Oh, we can hear you. Great.
Thanks, sir.
Let's try it.
Cool. Yeah, so just a little bit about Freya's Marani and
yeah, how did you end up? Well, also how did you end up in Georgia making Georgian wine?
That's a long story.
Well, you can give us an abridged version.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I started making wine in Western Georgia in Imerati in this region as Baia in 2016. It was I came to Georgia in 2004 with study polyphonic music and just really interested in organic food and organic farming, but had no in mind whatsoever. But wine and song are so connected in Georgian tradition, it was impossible for me to study one without automatically being introduced to the other. And so I found for the first time in my life this that was something that I liked because I had hated being in Georgia. And so I just I don't know, I had so many questions was this wine and not other wine? And so that introduced me into this whole world of natural I had no idea about before, because we know in the US and many contexts, there is a huge difference between organic restaurants and organic accents on food versus like the organic wines. They're not necessarily sold together, not necessarily together. And so I became incredibly interested in winemaking and the entire process of farming organically and making the wine organically, and then working at BC's first natural wine bar, and gave me access to all of these winemakers and all of the, which resulted in making my first wine in the bar, working there, and then realizing that with having my own vineyard, my own bit of land, I wouldn't ever really fully be able to. So this is the Marani that really arose through having questions about how this even happened. And extremely to be able to at Vino Underground and do everything here on my own. So starting from the beginning, I made a point to do stuff on my own, people to come and work, and during harvest there were friends who came and helped, or during bottling or whatever, but it was really like a very small project from the very beginning. Hopefully soon with the option to it, but yeah, so right now from the vineyard here, which is in Imereti region, local varieties, so Qvevri, and Abuladze, and a few different experiments with those, one white, two ambers, and a light red at the moment. Really like mostly with a focus on field blends, I guess, what comes out of that situation, but really pushing it as far as like everything by hand. At the beginning, there was no electricity in the house, so there were no pumps, for example, for a long time. There has never been any sulfur at all. Everything done like by hand and by foot, simply because at the beginning that was the only option, and then just like, why not small enough to keep getting it that way.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's great. I mean, I'm excited to see how everything continues to grow. Everybody, I think, mentioned something about having no formal education, which was interesting, because if everybody has no formal education, then who has a formal education, and how are you excluded from it? Or are you excluded from it, or do you choose not to participate in a formal education structure? And maybe, does anyone feel free to jump in, but if not, I'll choose somebody who doesn't have a formal education to talk about it. Baia, go ahead. You just have to
Like, that's really beautiful when you have like exact knowledge what you're doing, and like exact idea about like every green process in the vineyard. But while I finished just like my master in the social sciences, there was a lot of work back to the winery itself, and then we had this great opportunity to be together with my sister and brother, and then they were quite young to have a lot of time for studying, and then yeah, they split each other to the vertical, to the grape growing itself. And then when we three of us are together, we are thinking that we have kind of mafia of diversities of the knowledges together, but as soon as we are doing work together and we choose these traditional and modernized like techniques all together, that's beautiful. And what we are thinking is that in every vintage we like kind of find out something new for our wines. For example, this vintage we used in 2020, we used these Bantanash techniques, which really shown up some amazing like aromatics in our wines, and aging wine on the lees was a really great decision in these like times. And yeah, we are really young, and we are thinking that like we will do our best in the future really soon. And yeah, that's beauty when you can mix up those like knowledges together.
Thank you. Keto, you, Berishvili, you have something you want to add? Yes, please. 2 things. Okay. Tamuna, you have to pick up the phone. I think are you calling? Tamuna, you have to unmute. No?
Come.
No? Okay.
Oh, it's Katie.
All the windows.
Okay, now we can hear you, I think.
I would that the best is the experience for me. I mean, it's of course good to have the studies like professional, but the help for wine like we, it's the experience.
It's the experience, yeah.
I mean, you are learning, you are making your faults, and you are working.
Absolutely.
Are you hearing this?
The gist that I was getting is that the best learning is by making mistakes and studying, and not studying just by experience, by just keep going, learn from doing.
Sometimes not necessary to think. I can say that like 2015, I didn't do anything. Pick the grapes in the. It's like the second year that I can say that I started to understand what is the vineyard and make wine. It was 2015.
Some people say they never exactly figure it out. So I think you're doing well so far, as for being only 5 years. I remember visiting the first time I visited Georgia. We went to some big estates like Kinsmaruli, where they have these huge. They look like tanks. They're like thousands and thousands tanks lined with asbestos. It looks like this from the Soviet era, like crazy. European, using what's called when wine in Georgia is not made in Qvevri, or made in barrel or in tank, you say using European technology, which is so very much in that tradition. But it seems like for a culture that is so based on the tradition of 8,000 years of making wine in the same way, a lot of the education would also just be from peers or elders, from family, rather than from a formal, even if you formal education, would you learn Qvevri winemaking? Would you learn the traditions of Georgia, or would it be more European traditions? Nobody. Go ahead.
As I heard, like while my brother was studying, like me and my sister, we were but his final results with the experience exam of the wine he made in the end, and the program of viticulture and winemaking is including both of the sites of Qvevri, and they have also their own wine cellar there to study and experiment, and at the same time the university is including the small vineyard as well. So those study has a lot of practices, and they also went to the big factories and study both of the sides of Qvevri and non-Qvevri winemaking. So yeah, it's combined.
Interesting. I just want to shift in a little bit of a different direction, just to go back to sort of a little bit about why we're talking specifically to women making wine in Georgia. There's a reason why we bring the subject up again and again and again. And I'm just going to give a little short anecdote about my own family, which is my grandfather and my grandmother used to make. Well, this is the thing. There was a jam that was called grandfather's jam. He made out of. Well, he picked blackberries. He used to go into the side of the road all over and pick these blackberries, come back with blood all over his arms because there are thorns. He really suffered to pick these blackberries, and he'd come back and bring them. And then my grandmother would actually make the jam. She put the sugar in, a lot of sugar, and with the blackberries, but we called it grandfather's jam because, I don't know why. I never thought about it because it was just, that's what its name was. And I was thinking about it in the context of Georgian wine, how there must be so many situations where it's a family, but the wine is named after the patriarch in a way, or sort of only one person gets the credit. And it's usually the husband, the father of the family. But obviously with you all, that's not the case. But I just wanted to sort of hear what your experience is about the tradition of that. I remember seeing at the new wine fair with all the family wineries, on the side where it's a line of men in the front, sitting at the front of the table, and all these women and children in the back and the center talking and doing all the family is involved, but we only see one person.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens.
I was sometimes. I was listening yesterday. The winemaker from Loire told that somebody asked me that whose winery. So is that? She said, and she answered that this is my winery. Okay, but who is the director? He asked again. So it's a little bit hard to, I don't know, believe that women are not only administrating, they are managing the stuff in the wineries, and they are have to deal with mud, and they are pruning themselves. It's a little bit hard for the people to believe still, because as I told you, we in my family, we both are making wines in different wineries, and everybody is asking me still that, are you really making your wines, or your husband is making wines, and you are like kind of a marketing channel or a marketing line of his winemaking as well. And I have heard the same little bit about my friends, the winemakers, girls. Like, yeah, and I at the beginning when this problem, when I had when I had to contact with the growers, I mean, minerals who were a little bit skeptic towards communicating with me, as I was not just regarded from them as a serious winemaker or something like that. After years, maybe, yeah, you can, yeah, be regarded as a real winemaker, and
yeah,
these stereotypes in the world. for certain years.
It's Keto.
Archa Harubra.
I combination of situations. There's think of a whole list of wine that work very much in that grandfather's jam situation, where it is his name on the bottle, but if you go there, you see how many into the final product. I think there's also a situation where men think that this is a scheme, you know? And there are men making wine who will then put a woman in the bottle in order, which in the end really downplays the work that we're all doing. Because there is no woman involved there, and they're just using their daughter, mother, sister, wife to sell the wine, that's a whole different. As Keto was talking about recently, I don't know, it's a situation new in the past year. The fact that getting married, we'll talk directly and they won't talk to me. And so right before harvest, we buy grapes from where I came from with the winemaker, with the grape producer that we're going to buy the month before, blah, 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 been in contact, entire conversation to my husband, answering him. So it's like this weird dynamic where it takes so long, people who are really like into to realize that actually like I can her directly instead of at her husband's face. My husband couldn't care less. Like I'm the one organization, you know, but it's just like this block that people that context can't see move past. And hopefully eventually they will want to.
It seems like you all are doing extravagantly good work to change that or move it forward. But, you know, have you seen some improvement in the past? As, you know, I mean, as you all have grown and gained in notoriety locally and also internationally, have you seen that shifting, or is it sort of at a stagnant sort of plateau at this point?
Yes, it's really improving, especially since 2015, because as we all listen to hear the stories from my friends, winemakers, this was like, I can say, it was a kind of crucial point, like 2015, when many female winemakers came to the stage themselves on the front and showed themselves. But you know, still, I realized on my practical experience that it's still, it's one thing when you are like, when you're a representative of your winery, in media or with the importers or in wine tourism, I don't know, as a host or something like that. But on the other hand, absolutely different stuff is when you're managing really on everyday life, or when you're like, making everyday decisions in your winemaking. And I think that's maybe the next point, because the first step was like to gaining this, I don't know, leading positions in the wineries. But the another thing is that it's really hard to work in, especially family winery, when you have men around you, because as Enek mentioned, that you know, men like a natural validation, sense of validation, that they like know everything, or they of everything in winemaking. Even they didn't experience maybe a vintage like I know my neighbors, my relatives, but everybody is teaching you like you have to do like this or you have to do like that. Yeah, it's really very deeply rooted in the culture, you know. And it's really hard to gain the real power to manage the lead the situation in the everyday life and not on the marketing platform only.
Why do you think so? What is it that maybe if everybody can just, while you're not speaking, just maybe mute the mic just so we can make sure we don't have so much feedback. But why do you think that Georgian men are born with the conviction that they know how to make wine even if they've never touched grapes? Is it something that it like
it's really a historical and cultural issue, you know, because we have this 8,000 years unbroken tradition. And you mentioned that it's a kind of lifestyle and it's a part of our life. It's so integrated in our perception, in our mental way of thinking, in our symbolism and everything, you know. It's really men don't have any requirement, inner feeling that they need special knowledge for that or something. And they have like a natural sense of the validation.
Must be nice.
Yeah, and like at the same time, like unfortunately my grandma is like just not with us for a long time, but she was talking us about a lot about her own childhood and that pure time while there was this world war. And she was saying that she came from really poor family from our neighboring areas, and they were four in the family, like four child, and then parents and also like grandparents. And she was saying that my father was not really active person, like he could not do a lot for the family because like he was really hard worker, but cannot think a lot about how to do and solve the problems. And then her mom like trying to decide to sell wine and to exchange wine with corn and different products for their own children. And she was taking this wine with her own shoulders and like selling that in the villages where the grapes were not growing. So and then he was taking corn or different food for the family back to the place. And there is a lot of stories like that in our like let's say Soviet Union time. And yeah, it's like it's beautiful that we can think more about our families and how to like be more brave and active whenever it is time.
Yeah, that is cool to be more brave and sorry. Please, yeah, go ahead.
Say something. Yeah, I wanted to say something. Village personally. I can say even less from each one. And they are happy about the fact that girls decided to quit the city and come work with them in daily life, and a big force for me.
Yeah, it seems lucky. No, it's wonderful to have that kind of support from your community, from the men in your community. It seems rare for everybody, but we're all benefiting from it. But I wanted to ask sort of you're go ahead. Oh, okay.
No,
I'm just are there, you know, you're some of the first women to do this. publicly. And I'm wondering what we can do sort of as a community of support for Georgian wine to help help more women come forward and make wine. Yeah, that's true. Julie also wanted to, thanks Julie for noting that, everybody in the chats. We're doing there's another tasting, but if you have any ideas as sort of what kind of actions or what kind of things can we do to help support the next generation of female winemakers in Georgia? Not that we're done with any of you yet, you're just getting started, but.
I think you're helping a lot because for me personally, the wine writers from the abroad, especially from the United States, also the importers, were the people, especially like I saw the message of Julie personally, and my friends, you all, were the people who were helping me a lot because yeah, in my country it's a little bit maybe difficult for the beginner to show yourself as a winemaker who don't have any formal education. And I was so much like boosted, like so many people these media help and articles and publications helped me so much to raise awareness about my brand internationally that I even could not believe in that from the very beginning. And so you guys from the abroad and from the United States are helping us very much because maybe sometimes some of us have more awareness internationally and more popularization than in our own country. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
And like at the same time, yeah, Keto said really beautiful words about that, and I would like to just add some more things. As we are representing like our villages, like in the many regions of Georgia, in almost all the regions, like what I personally think is that, for example, in Opcha, there are only wineries are like working, and there are only several who is employing the people because like they have some power to sell their products, and they are making these amazing spaces for people to work because unfortunately in there is really bad management in our like land management in our region, and per family has about like 1 hectare or 1.5 hectare in the best case for whole farming. And if you can imagine what you can do from out of that, it's really like nothing. And people are still growing a lot of stuff for only their own consumption, and they can only sell some cheese weekly or some eggs or stuff like that. And while you see that whole world is so much changing and your children are growing up, you really need like something to and to give them the power, of course. And for example, for now, we are like having lots of women who are helping us during this whole green processes, because like it's impossible to do everything without like helping hands, and there we have a lot. And at the same time, 4 boys are working with us. Like I'm the oldest in this crew, and yeah, we are drinking a lot of like coffee and stuff together and having really a great fun. And while we have also deliveries, we take some of them. And yeah, it's the great joy when you work in the like your classmates or your like villagers are working with you, and it's also beautiful. And at the same time, while we have TV shows who are coming with us, and it's happening a lot. And the last week, Natya was also in Opcha, and we had really great fun. There is a lot of shoots and photos about those beautiful work we are doing together with these women. And yeah, it's really nice to see them like being more fancier and yeah, stuff like that. And one more thing about like last year, my sister brought this opportunity to show films from US. Like I don't remember the name of these techniques, but really helped her to buy it. Movie, and she made this movie night for local children. And unfortunately, then the pandemic starts, and we were not able to continue that. But it was really great fun. Parents were drinking wine, and children were eating a lot of popcorn. So, yeah, it's beautiful when you can do something like even really tiny, small one. So, thanks for supporting us.
For we have what I've seen. I've been importing Georgian wine, I think, for 3 years now, and now the demand is unquenchable. There's an endless demand all over the country in the U.S. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's such a joy to see. It's made such a difference, and it seems to just be getting bigger. So the more wine you make, the better for us from our perspective here. We have about 20 minutes left, so I'm going to shift to a couple of questions from the Q&A. And if anybody else has any questions in here, there's so much that, next time we'll have all the technology and we'll have a little bit more time for other questions. But the first one was from a wonderful winemaker from California, Megan Bell from Margins. Came in a little earlier when we were talking about wine and music, and she was wondering how wine and music are connected in Georgia, which brought up a question that I was wondering about. How many of you can just raise your hand, are involved in polyphonic singing? Keto, Berishvili, no. Okay, Keto, Ninidze. No, not everyone but Tamuna. But it's true.
Only electronic music.
Sorry, what did you say, Tamuna?
Electronic music.
Oh yeah, only in Berlin at Berghain. We know this. So, does anyone want to just tell us a bit about the tradition of polyphonic singing?
Keto wants to say something.
No, I just wanted to add that Tamuna is involved and she fell in love with Tushati and polyphonic songs.
Yes, and Pangasian also.
Oh.
No.
But Keti, she's singing, and how I know Keto also and Enek also, they are singing very,
I'm not
very
a professional singer, but in our family, during the harvest and during pressing wine, yes, songs are very meaningful for us.
In how Keti Berishvili is crushing grapes with her friends in Satznacheli and singing, it was really great experience that I remember even when I was not making wines from that time, and I was writing about wines, and I was to interview Keti's father in Artana. It was beautiful. And then she put on the label 4 friends in Satznacheli singing together. It's really a great story.
Yes, I remember that day when we came with Darva, and for me it was like first harvest, personal.
მე მაგალითად ნახე ახალ ჩემ ვენახში 80 წლის წინ ორ ვენახში დავიწყე გასვლა თუ ელექტრონულ მუსიკას ვასმენინებ და რა გამოვანახო
რას ვასასმენინებ ელექტრონულ მუსიკას?
ხვალერად ვერ ვიმუშავე რა რაღაცნაირად ნახოთ რა
შეგვეცი working in vineyard, she's putting on the electronic music so the wines could hear that music. So she doesn't have an idea what's gonna be, but well, she does that. We will see on the next vintage.
Now we know. Now we know why your wines
better.
Yeah. Now we know why they don't taste like anybody else's wines in Georgia. But the tradition of polyphonic singing is largely, again,
Yeah, I wanted to say a few words about the polyphony.
please.
Yeah, it's, you somehow link these two things with each other. And it's really very, very relevant connection because it's a very small country. We are about 3 million. And the regions differ from each other so much. I mean, the landscapes and the characters of the people, and according to the characters, the ethnical costumes and dancing and singing and everything. So even the neighbor regions are very different from each other sometimes. So we have a kind of desert and the sea-tide regions, and also the very cold regions like South Meskhetiya and Javakhetiya, and also the viticultural experience like terraces in Meskheti, and the wine grown on the trees in Samegrelo, and low training systems in Kakheti, and so on. So, and the singing is also very different from each other. If you compare like Kakhetian singing, which is more Eastern style, and also polyphony, with the Gurian singing, which is absolutely a kind of jam session and crazy, a very spontaneous thing. And it also maybe is reflected in the wines as well, because Kakhetian wines are like more straight and direct and like so-called masculine, compared with Gurian ones or Emiratian ones, which are more flirting, like the polyphony singing and the people overall there, and much more like light and funny and flirty ones. So it's like the same.
That's interesting. We have another question here from someone named Laura. More about the Qvevri, about just some nuances of use, how long they last, length of skin contact, which is obviously different for everybody, but just maybe we can have someone talk a little bit about the lifespan of a Qvevri and the process of using one, if anyone wants to volunteer. Everybody. Baia, Tamuna.
რა კითხვა ვერ გავიგე.
ესე იგი, Qvevris ხანგრძლივობა, ზე რა სიტყვიო და ჭაჭაზე რამდენი ხანი აყენებ მაგალითად შენ?
Qvevris ხანგრძლივობაზე, ანუ იმის უნარიანობაზე, რამდენად შეუძლია ხარისხიანი ღვინო დაყენოს ძალიან ძველმა ღვინომ. მაქსიმუმ შემიძლია ვთქვა 120 წლის წინანდელი Qvevri გვაქვს ერთი ჩვენ მარანში. მაგრამ ზოგადად ჩვენთან Qvevris კულტურა ძალიან დიდი ხანი არის და შედეგად შეიძლება რომ ძალიან ბევრი საუკუნის Qvevrishიც დავაყენოთ ღვინო. მაგალითად მოვსანთლოთ კარგად, გამოვწვათ, ბევრი რაღაც შეგვიძლია გავუკეთოთ და ვიხმაროთ საუკუნეების Qvevri, მაგრამ მე პრაქტიკაში მაქვს 120 წლის Qvevri, არის 2 ტონა ნახევრიანი, რომელიც არის ფანტასტიკური. არც ერთ წელს არ უმტუნია ჩვენთვის.
Okay, about the Qvevri, if you keep the Qvevri for a hygiene in the Qvevri and it's burned in kiln very well, make wines in those Qvevris for a very long time, for example, few centuries. But I have experience with 120 years old Qvevri, which we have in our cellar, Marani. It is 2.5 tons, 2,500 liters capacity, and it never made a bad wine, let's say. Every year we are using it, and it does have a gives us a high quality wine. So if you take care of your Qvevri, it gives you good wine. It doesn't matter how old it is.
თავარი არის სწორი ქვევრის მოვლის ცოდნა.
By my experience, if you know how to take care of Qvevri, how to clean it, then it will go a long way.
რაც ცოტა რთული დასამოღამებელია, ასე ვთქვა. თუ ერთხელ დაამოღამებ გარეთ მერე
it is quite hard to learn how to make cleaning proper, like washing the Qvevri walls and clean out pores. It takes time, but at some point you will get there.
And just a side note, how long does it take you to clean each Qvevri?
რამდენი ხანი გჭირდება ერთი ქვევრის გასარეცხად?
გააჩნია ზომას. ჩვენ გვაქვს სხვადასხვა ზომის ქვევრები. ყოფილა რომ ერთ ქვევრს დაჭიროებია, აი მაგ ქვევრს დაჭირდა ერთი დღე მაგალითად, რომ გაგვერეცხა.
6 დღე?
ერთი მთიანი დღე, მაგრამ გააჩნია, ნუ აი ტონი რო ავიღოთ ესე საშუალოდ 1000 ლიტრიას 4 წელს დღეში ისეთ კარგ.
Okay, it depends on the size of the Qvevri. For example, that 120 years old Qvevri, we need 1 full day to clean it because it is 2 tons, more than 2 tons. But for example, if you clean 1 ton capacity Qvevri, 1000 liters, then you can make good cleaning, like 4 Qvevris per day.
და გააჩნია დიდ ქვევრებში გჭირდება ჩასვაში არის რაღაცა ზომი რომელსაც ვერც ჩადიხარ და თან ძალიან გიჭირს ჩახეხვაც და გააჩნია ზომას მოკლედ და
yeah, it depends on the size because in big larger Qvevris you should go inside and clean the walls from inside, but in the smaller Qvevris you clean them from above. So also it depends on the sizes.
ჩასვაში არის ძალიან რთული, რა უთხრათ ჩვენ სმენელებს, არის ურთულესი, იმიტომ რომ ჟანგბადი არ არის შიგნით ფაქტიურად და ძალიან რთული არის უჟანგბადოთ თან მოძრაობებში ყოფნა, არის ურთულესი.
It is quite hard. It is quite hard to get inside the Qvevri because there is not much of oxygen, and plus you are working and brushing and scrubbing the walls. So for me, for example, it's quite hard to get inside and clean it because lack of oxygen keeps me dizzy.
რთული არის ჭაჭის ამოღების დროს, როდესაც ჭაჭას კიდე თავისი გაზები აქვს, რომელიც უთავს შიგნით და არის დიდი ექსტრემია ქვევში რეცხვაც და მუშაობა.
Also taking out of the skins when you are separating wine from the skins from chacha. This is quite hard because some air leftovers in the skins. It also kicks you, and well, not easy job.
Big extreme.
Big extreme.
Yeah.
Big extreme. Two people asked how do you clean them, and there are different ways, but that's sort of the entry point, and we can get into technical stuff. But I want to do, and maybe if you have questions about cleaning Qvevri or technical stuff about winemaking, you can reach out to me or one of the wonderful women on the panel, obviously. There's another question. Thank you, Tamuna. Very in-depth. Somebody asked about the equivalent of the AOC system. So like in France, people have difficult relationships with the rigidity of their system. Is this your experience in Georgia? So region by region, are there regulating bodies that are telling you, you have to write this on the label, you have to, no, or yes, it's complicated?
Like there are several appellations here in Georgia, but our village is, for example, not including yet, but people are thinking to make new appellation out of that. Yeah, but we are free for now.
Yeah, to some extent, because sometimes. Yeah, you can say.
Enek, go ahead.
There's only a few appellations in Georgia, and so unless you want to put that on the label, you don't need to really go through a system. Everything is like under the table wine category, I guess you would say. If you do want to put like Inadali or something like this on the label that's an appellation, then it does need to go by a tasting committee, I believe. I think that's when you would have. It's not like unless you really want this on your label, then
properly blended, like the percentage will be followed like guidelines.
Julie is saying there are 20 official. This is also a question that during this tasting on Wednesday through Wines of Georgia would be, there's going to be more information about it. So if you are interested in learning more about appellations, this is a regional tasting focused on the. So it will you'll have a lot of information about it. So if you do want to get involved in that, you can reach out to me or Julie. There was one more question that was not about a technical thing. Not that I'm ignoring the technical questions, but I want to talk. Just this is just for fun. But someone is asking that what do you wish for Georgian wines for the future? The question was, what do you wish for Georgian wines for the future? And maybe we can have everybody answer this question as a nice closing.
I wish to have like almost all the empty lands here in Opcha planted by vineyards, because we have amazing terroirs, and out of that we can make good wine, fingers crossed.
მე შეიძლება ვთქვა რა. მე მინდა ვუსურვო, რომ მთლიანად საქართველოს, როგორც აზრე მთელი საუკუნის განმავლობაში ვაყენებდით ყველანი ნატურალურ ღვინოს და ვუვლებით ვენას ნატურალურად, ზუსტად იგივე კურსი გავაკეთებთ.
Okay, I wish that the old Georgia, like before, throughout the centuries, were making natural wine. I wish that we would continue and all Georgia would make only natural wine. We did not have any other way before. We just learned it, how to make different wines in the Soviet times, I guess.
Who's next? Yeah.
That's something. If Georgian wine in Georgia itself, people need to recognize and how natural wine can be in, and for people to towards this of like what wine used to be and what wine could be, instead of looking for this like clean, sterilized, filtered, whatever that seems to be the goal for so many people, and for this like for natural to the villages and be appreciated. And for Georgia, more popular locally because they're not. And they should be.
What are people drinking locally? Just from the big wineries?
Bottled wine.
Sugar.
Sugar.
Yeah.
Is it
Made
Yeah.
Keto, Ninidze, do you want to, in your region, you said people are drinking with a lot of sugar, still, the wine.
Yeah, and that's the reason of some cardiovascular diseases. overall.
And what,
And we like talk to our friends and relatives and neighbors to not to drink that, and they say that, oh, we already get accustomed to your cooperation, that we get accustomed to the taste of natural wines and we can't drink now the wine with sugar. you know
Mhm.
you know the stuff of the Soviet experience, wines, the people started forcing the wines because they had very little grapes and they had to make a big quantity of wine, and that's the point.
and now what are your hopes for the future of Georgian wine? That people-
Future or Georgian wine, maybe the same like Tamuna says, our Kolikoteshvili, who was a kind of pioneer winemaking, said that, and it's a great dream of mine as well, that it's like almost every family their own family winemaking. I mean, bottling commercially, doing their business and positioning in a very like correct way. And Georgia will be marked on the wine map, world wine map, like a natural wine country as a region. That's all.
Wonderful. That would be so nice. And we just have one more, I think, because Taso disappeared, but Keto.
Keti can talk.
Are we? It's
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Roni.
Yeah.
So, I would say that we will continue in the honest way. The future is bright, in my opinion. And I see also what Enek said, and I also wish that in Georgia, natural wine became as popular as it is in other countries. I think that this movement already started, but because of this pandemic situation, things are getting slower. But I see a lot of young people who are very, really interested and in love with wine, like natural wine.
wonderful.
დავამატებ რომ დაახლოებით 4 წელია ვაკეთებთ მე და ჩემი მეგობრები ნატურალური ღვინის ფესტივალს, სადაც ჩვენი მიზანი არის ვიპოვოთ პირველი მოსავლის მეღვინეები, რაც ნიშნავს, რომ პირველ ნაბიჯებს დგავენ ამ საქმეში და მერე გავაცნოთ, რაც შეგვიძლია შევუწყოთ ხელი თავისი საქმის პოპულარიზაციაში და მივიდეთ სტიმული, რომ აქვს ამ საქმეს მომავალი მანახოთ და გასავალი რაც თავარი.
Okay, for last 4 years, me and my friends started to have an annual natural wine festival for the first harvest winemakers, to give them the boost and motivations to continue the winemaking and more natural wines for Georgia and other world. Yeah.
და ძალიან მიხარია, რომ უკვე რამოდენიმე მათგანი მის გარდა რომ საქართველოში სამყარო ნატურალურ გარებში არიან, უკვე საზღვაო გარეთაც გავიდნენ და რაღაცნაირად თეთის თქმის არის ეს მოძრაობა და კარგად მიდის.
I'm glad that some of them not only already brought their wines to sell into the Georgian wine bars, they also started to export their wines outside of Georgia.
That's so cool. Are you going to do it this year, Tamuna?
აი თუ ეს კოვიდი დაგვთავს ნებას, ჩვენ ვართ სრულ დატყობნაში, რომ ჩავატაროთ ეს ფესტივალი და რომ მიკითხა რონიმ, რომ როგორ შეგვიძლია ჩვენ ხელი შეუწყოთ, თქვა თუნდაც ხალხები, დამწყებ ხალხებს შეუძლიათ რომ ჩამოვიდნენ ჩვენს ფესტივალზე და არა მარტო ჩვენ ფესტივალზე, ზერო კომპრომისზე, სადაც აღმოაჩინენ დარწმუნებული ვარ, ძალიან საინტერესო დამწყებ ქალმეღვინეს თუ კაცმეღვინეს.
If today's regulations or afterwards, it gives us the opportunity to have that festival this year, we are totally ready for that. And you asked, Roni, you asked before that how you can help the girls to help the other women for the winemaking or other. And that's what Tamuna said now, that you can help us by coming, visiting us during those festivals, not only our festival, also Zero Compromise, and to see that there are lots of other women, new winemakers, women or men, it doesn't matter, but there are coming, the new winemakers, natural winemakers.
Wonderful. Can't wait. Honestly, send them all to me. Well, Taso, thank you so much to all of you. Thank you also to Julie from Mark Wine Group and Wines of Georgia for sponsoring the event. I really, love you all, and I'm so grateful for you for the work that you're doing, and so grateful to have you in my life and be able to share you with the rest of the world. So, thank you again, and yeah, that's it. See you soon in Georgia.
Thank you soon.
Thank you.
Roni.
Thank you.